Hi there. Hey, are we on? Malcolm, I didn't get the signal. Okay, we're ready. On. Stan Weisleder here in the studio with Malcolm Berman, CRNtalk.com. We are on digital radio. We are on your apps. We are all over the internet. We are all over the planet and the galaxy.
We're every place that can be, we're there. And in future generations, when they hear our sound out into outer space, they can say, boy, what a weird shows those were.
They will say, what the bleep is that?
Right.
Okay, Paul, you didn't have to bleep that one out. I did it for you.
Anyway, we introduce our guest.
All right, we have a special guest today, a comedian, Brian T. Shirley. Brian, are you with us now?
Oh, yeah. I'm right here.
Okay. All right, Brian, why don't you tell us briefly or lengthily about your career, what you do, where you've been, where you travel?
Well,
in about 30 seconds.
Sure. I've been doing comedy for over 20 years all across the United States, Canada, and the Bahamas. And just got back from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Had 2 sold-out shows there at Latitude 40, and it was amazing. Really, really good venue there. And I just travel wherever I can and love to do the deed. And you had a great honor being at Sid Caesar's funeral, Stan. And I got to tell you something about that. He, to me, illustrates the perfect example between what a comic is and what a comedian is. To me, Sid Caesar was a comedian. He didn't just get up and deliver lines like y'all were saying. He acted it out. He could do characters, and that's why later on in life he had some great roles. Grease, he was the coach in Grease, if you remember that, and some of the other movies he did. So I think it's an illustration of how if you're a comedian, and I find myself to be a comedian, I do characters too, you can make that transition over into being an actor because basically you really are. You're just writing your script is what you do when you do stand-up. And a comic, to me, is someone who just Jerry Seinfeld, who delivers jokes, which there's no better or worse. I'm just saying it's 2 different things.
Well, I admired the way you guys do your craft. I, for one, I can write jokes. I can tell jokes. I can, give them to somebody to do. But to get up there and live in front of real people, I couldn't do that. Make a fool of myself and have everybody laugh at me.
Well, laughing at you is fine. It's when they don't laugh, I assume, you get into trouble.
But can you imagine if getting up there and then you die? I could never do that. I mean, you guys have a lot of guts and courage to be able to get up and do that. And I'm sure you go through a learning process, and maybe when you first started it, hey, you weren't that good, and you learn how to get to be good, and you learn how to deal with hecklers and so forth.
Of course. The thing about it is any comic that says he hasn't died probably hasn't been on stage more than once.
That's good.
That happens to everybody. And you still write bits that, aren't quite what you thought they were. In your brain, you're going, man, this is going to kill. Then you get up there, and like you said, it's crickets, and you're going, maybe I should not write that.
Maybe this wasn't anymore. This wasn't as funny as I thought it was.
Yeah,
there's one thing I've noticed about professional comics or professional comedians when they get up there. Invariably, there's a heckler. And when they're really good, they know how to handle hecklers, and they put them in their place 1, 2, 3. And I've seen that, and it's nice to watch and see a professional up there doing his best and then being heckled, and then they get back at the heckler and they just kill them, do away with them. I saw this happen. In fact, last week, we saw a comedian, an older guy. He's been around many, many years, Shelley Berman. Maybe you have heard of him. And he's coming, let's see, I think he's been in the show business as a comic as about over 50 years. And there was some lady heckling. And boy, he made a short whatever of her. He took care of her real quickly in a nice way.
But not necessarily heckers. Did you ever feel threatened on stage from a hostile audience?
When I was in Canada, yeah. And I mean, that sounds funny, but it's true.
Yeah, those Canadians are vicious.
It was more the venue. We were doing a bunch of one-nighters when I was in British Columbia and Alberta. We did 16 cities in 3 weeks.
Wow.
That's all it asked, literally. And we were at one club one night, and I remember this guy just came and stood there right in front of the stage.
Okay, Brian, hold on to that. We're coming up to a break. And we'll be okay. You're listening to CRNtalk.com, The View from Over Here, on CRN Digital Radio, and you can get our website at www.viewfromoverhere.com. And we'll be back with Brian Shirley in a few minutes. Stay tuned.
Hi, Stan Weisleder on CRNtalk.com. I am in the studio here with Malcolm Berman. Our special guest for today, Brian T. Shirley, is going to continue his story about his trip to Canada after he got interrupted by our commercials. Brian.
Well, I got to tell you, some of these venues that you do on the road, people would not believe. I was in a fishing village where they only had about 30 minutes to catch whatever fish for that season, and to say that Canadians drink beer is like saying water's kind of moist. Anyway, so this guy just comes and stands right in front of the stage with his beer, just eyeing me down, and that's one of those days when you go, well, it's going to happen today, because you always think, what's going to happen if somebody, attacks me on stage? And you never think it's going to happen, but that was the closest I've ever had. And I told him, I said, you come any closer, I'll give you a microphone stand enema. And he backed off.
That's a good heckler joke.
It worked that night, thank goodness.
Well, I can imagine. I can imagine someone coming. Okay, Brian, be funny, make me laugh.
Yeah, you get that a lot, and it's hard to explain to people. Hey, I'm a character when I'm on stage. I'm different off stage than I am on stage. Even my dad has got used to when people. He tells them my son's a comedian, and they say, do something funny. He's even got jumped to my fence and said, "Look, you got to see him on stage. You can't just,
But by the way, where's your accent from?
Well, I grew up in Marietta, Georgia. I live in Charleston, South Carolina right now. But sometimes when I go up north, a lot of people can't tell I'm from the South because I do stuff like enunciate, and that screws them up.
Well, you definitely come off from the South. Well, I'm a Brooklyn boy myself, and everybody, when I've only been living in Los Angeles for about 30 years, but everybody knows I hail from Brooklyn by the sound of my voice.
Exactly. I've got a connection with CRN Radio I did not know until I saw y'all's website. Let me tell you real quick, Malcolm and Stan, this is a big honor for me, too. Y'all have Barry Farber on your network. I don't know if you guys know Barry personally. I don't. But I have known his little brother. When I say little, Barry's in his 80s, right? I believe.
Yeah, he's an older gentleman.
Yeah, his brother is Jerry Farber, a comedian out of Atlanta who has been doing it for a good 50 years or so. And I had the honor of headlining his club in Atlanta, Jerry Farber's Side Door, and he talks very much about his brother, very affectionately, too. Even though they're diametrically opposed politically, they are very far.
Yeah, but Barry Farber had a syndicated show when I was a boy in New York. I think WOR Radio.
Yes, and Jerry says that he is the guy that people like Rush Limbaugh, et cetera, looked up to back in the day.
He has a very calming voice. A little Southern accent there, but very calming and very, like, together. You listen to him, it's sort of like listening to a preacher or something. It's really calming.
Brian, I have a question for you. Do you have any idea how many comedians or comics there are out in the United States, all told?
Oh, man, that is an incredible question that I wish I could answer because then it would help me figure out how to get more gigs. There's got to be thousands of them, and it depends on what level, too, or when do you call somebody a professional comedian? There's so many.
They're getting paid. They're a professional, whether it's $5 or $5,000.
Yeah, okay.
Or if you're up in Canada, they pay you off in beer. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, or that fish if they can catch it.
If they can catch it. A little salmon you go up a little further north.
True, yes.
How can we hear some of your materials? Do you have a website that people can go to and see your schedule or hear some of your work?
I've got a YouTube channel, probably several hours of videos, and I'm doing web series now about my radio show and being on the road. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you this, Stan. Like I said, I did the sold-out shows in Pittsburgh. I've got a web series called BTS on the Road. So if you want to see what it's like from the backstage stuff, I show a little bit of clips of me on stage, but most of it is me, what's it like to be on the road as a comedian? Well, I just started doing this thing. I think I shot number 4.
Oh, do you travel by bus or do you drive or what? You said 16 venues in 3 weeks or something like that?
That was in Canada. I drove all the way from Charleston, South Carolina, up through, picked up my Daryl Rhodes, a well-known comedian. I was on tour with him back then. Picked him up in Washington, and we hit it. We went as far north as you can go on the continent, and a Grand Am, 2-door.
Wow.
Grand Am. Yeah. So I drive a lot. I fly like Bahamas, obviously. When I did the Atlantis Resort, I've done it twice. It's beautiful.
Have you ever performed in Alaska?
No, have not done Alaska.
And I ask because you cannot drive to Alaska. There are no roads. You have to fly or go by boat.
But you can see Russia from there. That's
well, only Sarah Palin can see Russia from there. Not us mortals.
Are you going to be? Are you going? Have any plans to be in Los Angeles that we could catch you here? For us local folk?
Yet. No, I'd love to get out there. I've got to start investigating the clubs out there, and a lot of comics come out there and. They try their skills or whatever. I want to get paid to come out there. I don't want to come out there and kind of struggle because I've been doing that for 20 years. So
what is your humor about generally? What do you specialize in? Is it ethnic or is it just general or make fun of America or what?
I don't do a lot of political stuff, Stan and Malcolm, because I find that divides the audience right down the middle. But I do touch on a lot of things in society. I also talk about my growing up poor and coming from a divorced family. So I hit the nation at the heart, I think, my material does. And, everyday stuff, too. But then I've got some weird kind of, like I have a character from the South. He's called the Fine Southern Gentleman. He talks like this here, so bring back the dialect of the Old South because I thought it was a beautiful language. And you notice how we write these days. Back then, if you read any of the letters, they were just very eloquent. And what happened to that?
Well, what happened to writing and to letters? I don't know if I've gotten a personal letter in years.
People text and do email. Hardly anybody writes.
And anyway, Brian, we're coming up to the end of the session. Thank you very much for joining us.
And Brian, you got to let us know when you come to L.A.
And you're listening to
CRN. Will.
Thank you much, Brian. You're listening to CRNTalk.com. We'll be back in a few minutes with Jerry Cutler.